Hi, welcome to Echoes from the Satellite. I'm Karen. I know I didn't put up a recording last week. Sorry about that. Life sort of got in the way, but back on track this week, and happy to be able to bring you an episode on a fantasy novel. This is a book that I had when I was a teenager, and was kind of thinking about, for some reason, I no longer remember why I was thinking about this book, but I'd been thinking about it, hadn't been able to find it in any local bookstores, and so went to Thrift Books online and found a copy and ordered it. And it is Tomoe Gozen by Jessica Amanda Salmonson. So got this in decent shape. It's a little banged up. You can kind of see it's a little beaten up here and there, but definitely quite readable. And interestingly enough, when I opened this up, I discovered it had been signed by the author and, oops, let's go this way, and by the artist. So there's Jessica Amanda Salmonson's autograph. Looks like it was signed maybe at, I don't know, Northwest Con, something in 1984, and by Wendy Weiss, who previously had gone by, I think, Wendy Schultz. So very nice, quite a nice surprise to see that the book had been signed. And so what can I tell you about Tomoe Gozen? So Tomoe Gozen came out in 1981. I got this when I was in my teens, not this book, but I did not remember much about it other than that it was the story of a female samurai named Tomoe Gozen in a mythical Japan. So this Japan is full of ghosts and demons and monsters. And this was the first in a trilogy of books. And I don't have the other three books, but let me show you what those books looked like. I was able to find a picture online. The picture is a little bit blurry, but you can see here the second novel was The Golden Naginata. That came out in 1982, and then the final book was Thousand Shrine Warrior, and that came out in 1984. And these are all Ace, it's under the Ace science fiction imprint, but it's definitely fantasy with an edge of horror to it. So those are all three titles right there. As far as the author, Jessica Amanda Salmonson, looked her up. I would say that she doesn't have a huge bibliography. She did go on to write other titles beyond the Tomoe Gozen saga. She seems to have done a lot of editing of other like anthologies, magazines, and so forth. And it looks like now that she's still alive, and it seems like she's retired to Washington State and has a like antiquarian book dealership, as far as I can tell. And if anyone knows more than that, please feel free to leave some remarks in the comments. And my dog has decided, one of our dogs has decided to start squeaking a toy. So if you hear squeaks, that's what's going on. That's living life naturally. So let's see, what can I tell you about the book? So the novel feels a lot like a fix-up novel in that it seems to have like three short stories condensed into, or not condensed, but put together to form the book. There doesn't seem to be a strong single story going through it. I don't know if this is the case. I looked around online. I couldn't find anything that had any definite, that would give me any definite proof of this. So it begins with a story about Tomoe Gozen, who is this amazing, almost unbeatable, well, actually, she is unbeatable, swordswoman. And we don't get an origin story for her. There's no point in the book where we get any kind of background about where she comes from, who her family is, or anything like that. You're just sort of thrown into it with this character essentially fully formed, or she's basically in her adult stage. You don't know what her youth was like, etc. And so the first story is about her essentially being taken over, mind controlled by this evil sorcerer, and she does a lot of horrendous things, including killing her master. And so then she has to kind of recover from that. In the second story, she teams up with this young boy samurai to essentially rescue the boy's sister, who has been sold off to be a geisha, and they wind up fighting a ogre. And then the third story, it's hard to describe, but she goes off with her new master, who is the daughter of her former master, who she had killed, and who she also has a sort of romantic relationship with. And they wind up sort of shipwrecked on this island where she enters into this dream world. I don't want to go into too much detail to it, but I think she finds some redemption there after all the other stuff that has happened to her. I would say the entire book has a sort of dreamlike quality to it. Probably because of all the mythic creatures and mythic encounters that she has. And there's also quite a layer of melancholy to it. I think Tomoe is a character who is, I don't know, I wouldn't say sad, but perhaps not really in touch with her feelings, or maybe sort of maybe not really able to discover what really will give her meaning in life. She's sort of wandering around. I mean, she becomes Ronin. So there's sort of that feeling of not really being anchored. It also, as I mentioned, so she has a relationship with a woman, and there's a very brief and very mild sex scene. You could blink and miss it, but to me, when I read this as a kid, being a small town California kid, and we knew nothing about this, that was quite revelatory to me at the time. But now it seems very, very, very mild. I will say that when I read this as a kid, it was really impressive to me because the female character was, no doubt about it, quite quite the action hero. She's running around chopping off limbs and heads and and having these adventures just like any male character would have had. And I know nowadays we see this all the time in our media, but in '81 that was kind of a big deal. So I will give Salmonson her props, because I felt like a lot of the characters, female characters back in the day, even in fantasy, were not necessarily in there with the boys with the swords and running around and doing that. So that was impressive about it. And also the setting was quite impressive, because it wasn't the typical, European style setting that most fantasy had back in the day. I'm sure now there's probably a lot more fantasy books that are placed in, Japanese or other Asian settings. As a matter of fact, I know there are, but at the time I had never read anything like this. I had seen Shogun before I read this book. I might have actually read Shogun before I read this, but it was still a rare thing to see something set in anything other than sort of a European pastiche. So I enjoyed reading this again. At some point, I will get the other books, but probably like most of you, my TBR piles are just huge. So I have a lot of other stuff to get through. But I would definitely recommend it to people who enjoy fantasy. And if you're looking for something a little bit different, again, it is 40 something years old, but I think you might enjoy it. And so I'm going to move on to sort of a mini haul of books. I won't call it a haul because 4 books is not a haul. But I want to talk about some books that I just picked up recently. So I was on the other side of town and decided to stop at Half Price Books there to see if they had anything that I was interested in, and luckily they did. And so the first book that I discovered was this Ursula K. Le Guin, The Dispossessed. I've been wanting to get a hold of this. Books on my side of stores on my side of town did not have this book. So pretty happy to get this copy. It's in pretty good shape. And so, I've been on this kick of really rediscovering Le Guin. I had only read the Earthsea books prior to picking up Left Hand of Darkness and gosh, I'm blanking, but I'm excited to have The Dispossessed, so I'll be reading that sometime soon. And the next book, this was for my completionist aspects. I had all the other Star Trek novelizations for the classic crew. So I had, Star Trek the Motion Picture up through Star Trek the Undiscovered Country, and I didn't have Star Trek 5. I know a lot of people really, really dump on Star Trek 5, and yes, it's not the finest Star Trek movie, but even in like the worst Star Trek movies and episodes, I always find things that I enjoy. So now I've got Star Trek, excuse me, Star Trek 5 to round out my Star Trek films. Next is a book by Andre Norton. I've always enjoyed Andre Norton. I used to read like her Time Traders series when I was a kid and other books. So I'm just sort of randomly picking up Andre Norton books when I go to stores. And this is Judgment on Janus. I kind of feel like I might have read this when I was a kid, but just looked like a nice copy. So pick this one up and get around to it eventually. Now, this is the book that really sort of blew my mind when I saw it in the store. Got really excited. I'm already started reading it, and I'm already thinking about doing an episode on this, but sort of expanding it beyond the book. And this is the book, Arthur C. Clarke, The Lost Worlds of 2001. Now, I am a huge 2001 fan, absolutely love the film. I have done a lot of reading on how it was made, the background behind it. I just really think it's a fantastic movie. And, I know it's not the kind of movie that you just plop on the couch and get the popcorn out and sit back and enjoy. You have to really be in the right frame of mind. And it's the kind of movie that you can sit down. And I know personally, when I watch it, it seems like every time there's something new I notice in it, and it leaves me thinking about things. So I really enjoyed 2001, and I'm enjoying reading this book. And so in this book, what Clarke is doing is putting together some of the different short stories that he had that inspired parts of 2001. And then he's also got his diary from when they were filming 2001. So it's a lot of fun to read his comments, seeing some of his frustrations working with Stanley Kubrick, just his ideas, how things changed. Things were changing constantly when they were preparing for and even filming 2001. And then seeing some of the short stories, you can see little bits and pieces in his short stories that inspired things in the film. So this is a lot of fun. I'll definitely be putting together an episode on this. So if you like 2001, you'll want to see that episode. If you're like a lot of people who can't stand 2001, you'll probably want to skip that episode. So anyway, that's it for now. I'll be getting back to you guys really soon. I appreciate those of you who are subscribing and leaving comments and liking. I hope that I can continue to amuse all of you. And thanks again for tuning in. I'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye.